You know what they say about Canada? Land of the woke, liberal la-la land, a place where everybody is welcome, but sometimes that facade falls. Fault lines are emerging in Canadian society, and at the center of this divide is the hijab. Our story begins on December the 20th. The Canadian Medical Association Journal published a controversial letter. This was the headline: "Don't use an instrument of oppression as a symbol of diversity and inclusion." It was written by a surgeon from Montreal. He was talking about the hijab. He says wearing the hijab is a personal choice, but there is a caveat. Listen to this closely. I'm quoting from what he said. "The hijab, the niqab and the burqa are also instruments of oppression for millions of girls and women around the world who are not allowed to make a choice." Frankly, he's got a point. Every tradition or belief needs context, and that applies to religious symbols as well. Maybe for you, the hijab is a choice. Maybe it's a matter of pride. But elsewhere, perhaps it's not. In places like Iran or Afghanistan, the hijab is not a choice, it is mandatory. Women spend their entire lives hiding their hair or sometimes their face. Does this sound liberating or oppressing? And I'm not saying the hijab should be abolished. I'm saying we must recognize where it comes from. Islam talks about modesty, not just for women, for men too. But it doesn't talk specifically about a veil or a face covering. So where did the hijab come from? Simple answer: patriarchy. Most religious experts and preachers will tell you that hijabs are mandatory. But most religious experts and preachers have one thing in common: they're all men. The fact is, the hijab is a product of patriarchy. It was indeed a tool to oppress women, and in places like Afghanistan, it continues to be. Does that mean that government should abolish it? Not quite. In free societies, the hijab may be a choice. You can wear it or not. It's your personal decision. Or so we hope. But the Muslim community in Canada has taken offense. Two major Muslim groups demanded an apology from the Medical Association, and they relented. Not only did they apologize, they also retracted the letter. Let me tell you what the journal's editor-in-chief wrote. And I'm quoting again. "Islamophobia is a serious health issue. It kills." The letter's title suggests that the hijab is unequivocally an instrument of oppression that is wrong, hurtful, and offensive. I get the sentiment, but is this really Islamophobia? This journal clearly defended a woman's right to wear the hijab. At the same time, it questioned the history of wearing it. In other words, one size does not fit all. For you, the hijab may be a choice, elsewhere it's not. That is a fact, by the way, not Islamophobia. So why are Muslim groups up in arms? Perhaps because the atmosphere is changing. Hate crimes against Muslims are rising in Canada. Here's a list from this year alone. 8th June, a Muslim family of 4 was run over by a pickup truck in Ontario. All 4 were killed. 14 July, a mother and daughter were chased by a car in Toronto. Their crime, wearing a hijab. 6th October, a woman's hijab was ripped off her head by another woman in Ottawa. This happened in the middle of the road in broad daylight. 11th December, a Muslim teacher was fired from her job in Quebec, again for wearing a hijab. Islamophobia has always been a feature in Canadian society, by the way, especially since 9/11 in neighboring America. But recently, the hijab has become a lightning rod. So naturally, Canadian Muslims are worried. They believe criticizing the hijab is like criticizing Islam. And you can understand the fears, but you cannot justify them. Much like you can wear a hijab, but not glorify its history. This debate has been going on for some time. Is the hijab oppressive or empowering? I would say it depends on where you live. Maybe in democracies like India or America or Britain, a hijab is part of your identity, which is great, more power to you. But that does not make it perfect. It does not erase the real reason why the hijab was invented. Not as a proud symbol of Islam, but as a tool to oppress women. WION is now available in your country. Download the app now and get all the news on the move.